aboard. Escorts are your most fragile ships, followed by frigates, then cruisers, then battleships. Although I have had the misfortune of being in a battle where a single bloody bomber token, not even a ship, there's no models for it, it was a bloody token of, like, a small squadron of bombers which was sent out from a carrier, being lucky and rolling so many damn sixes against my battleship that the result, the fact that the bomber survived didn't help either. Now, fighters and bombers, like in most space naval combat games, are represented by tokens. They're dirt cheap as well, but they do require a carrier to actually bring them into the battle. However, they do not replenish. If they're destroyed, they're gone. That's it. You don't get any more. They are, however, the fastest things on the table, and in large enough groups, nothing is safe from them. They can mob battleships, leviathans, dreadnoughts, and bring them down. Just, the amount of dice you get to roll is amazing. They're also very durable, since the only way to destroy them is to roll a 6 whenever you're attacked by them. Whenever you're attacked by wings, you get your point defenses against them. This is all your little anti-aircraft weaponry stunning your ship against little fighters. You roll these dice. A 5 makes the little fighter pull away. The token doesn't contribute to the attack. A 6 destroys the token outright, and gives you another reroll because of the exploding dice mechanic. As you can see, that makes the fighters very, very durable and lethal, because the amount of dice they get to throw out when they're in a big enough mob will take down battleships. Of course, to counteract this, you can keep your ships close together and overlap their point defenses, since point defenses act as a sort of bubble around your ship of about 2 inches, and any token or torpedoes that go through that bubble are shot at by your point defenses. There's also stuff like secondary systems, shields, cloaking devices, and those are nice and simple to grasp, so I'll let you find that out for yourselves. Boarding? Yeah, boarding rarely really happens, since, at least in the games I've taken part in, simply due to it being quicker and more efficient to just shoot the enemy into pieces, rather than risk sending your crew on suicide jumps, because they get shot at by point defenses as well. Maybe if you've managed to lower the point defenses of an enemy ship, then it's worth it, because if you capture a ship, it's worth double the victory points, and basically guarantees you a good victory if you manage to capture some of the enemy ships. Oh, and an addendum. There's a simple little maneuver that remembers that we're fighting in 3 dimensions. It's called belly up, and it involves... Yeah, there's no other way to do it. I'm sorry. Play the clip.
Use the barrel roll!
I have no dignity. Anyway, what this does is switch your port and starboard gun facings, which is a neat trick if one entire side of your ship has been destroyed, and, because it lets you present your guns to the enemy. Despite having, one side gone, you just flip over and keep firing. There are 4 scenarios in the book, a relatively small amount in comparison to other wargaming rulebooks, but they're done in a really nice way, simple to understand, and provide a nice variety of things. We have Turn Up and Fight, Hide and Seek, Last Stand, and Free-for-All. Turn Up and Fight is the standard game. Two fleets of equal points values turn up and just attack each other, just like you get in movies. Two equal-sized fleets just blasting away at each other. You can add some scenery if you want, like planets, an asteroid field or something, but it's the standard scenario. You can play pretty much with the contents of two starter boxes. Take them out, assemble, paint them, get off, start playing. Hide and seek is a tad more tricky, since it involves the game taking place in an asteroid field, with the defender just trying to survive for 12 turns with nothing but cruisers and frigates in his fleet, whilst the attacker gets the whole spread. They can take anything they want. 3 guesses as to what Last Stand involves. Of course, outclassed defenders trying to survive against, an overwhelming enemy force, mostly through outmaneuvering them. But the book itself advises you to switch sides after playing, so both players can, can understand how it's like to be facing certain death or certain loss. Now, Free for All is designed to be used with the 4 starter boxes that originally came out when the game was released: the Aquans, the Terrans, the Dendrenzi, and the Directorate. It outlines rules for multiplayer games. Very little needs to be changed in the actual basic system to fit in more players. The initiative order works well. You just have another player rolling, and you each alternate moving one of your ships. So, really nice and simple. You can have really nice big games without much of a problem. So we have 6 fleets on offer. 3 human ones and 3 alien ones. The 3 human ones have differing philosophies, although, it's not humans versus aliens. Oh no. Although there is a slight similarity in how the allied races work. You have the Terrans, the Cerealians, and the Aquans, who are on one side, 1 human force and 2 aliens, and they all have shields. Whereas the Dendrenzi Directorate and the Relthosa do not have shields. However, the Relthosa do get cloaking fields, whilst the Directorate and the Dendrenzi get much tougher ships. So let's start off with the Terrans, the basic humans fighting on the defensive. They have the best shield tech in the game, although, as a trade-off, their ships have a lower critical rating. Their broadsides are fairly average, but the fact they have torpedoes on turrets, meaning all-round firing arcs with weaponry that does not become weaker as you're damaged, makes them fierce no matter from where you're attacking. Now, the Aquans can similarly fire their torpedoes on all arcs, but suffer less penalties at differing ranges. They also have very good point defenses, so will generally be able to shrug off torpedoes and attack craft, but are slower than other fleets. To counteract this, their frigates and escorts can be fielded in squadrons larger than those of the other races. As for the Cerealians, they rely on large numbers, reflected in their large squadrons and the large amounts of wings they can field. They are also the best at boarding and repelling boarders due to their high crew numbers, but have few point defenses and torpedoes as a drawback. The Dendrenzi have the toughest ships with the highest critical ratings and very impressive HP scores. They also have good point defenses to make up for their lack of shields, and lack dedicated broadsides, instead utilizing gun racks, which either shoot to the port or starboard. Also, their weaponry is most effective at longer ranges and is fixed forward rather than arced. As for the Directorate, they're fairly direct. Get in amongst the enemy, fire in all directions at once. They have small crews, making them slightly vulnerable to boarding, and a lack of shields, though still relatively high damage and critical ratings. And finally, the Relthosa. These guys are also broadside lovers, constantly moving and using their cloaking fields to sacrifice attack power for defense. They also utilize large amounts of attack craft, but are generally much more fragile than other fleets. So, to sum up, a slick combat game, which has great potential. There are some minor imbalances, like how a fleet with fighter craft will generally dominate one that doesn't have any fighters, but it's nothing that'll really ruin the game in a major way. The addition of a guide to designing your own ships is actually a very nice inclusion, as you can create your own stuff without having to wait for the company to get around and release them. The very brief background section and lack of a hobby section is surprising, However, as a first edition rulebook, it seems primarily focused on getting the rules out the way, explaining them, and making sure you know how to play. Fair enough. You know, get the rules out the way. Hopefully we'll see much more expanded background and hobbies section, like different paint schemes for the ships, converting ships into having different sort of weaponry or making them look more unique. But all in all, this is a really entertaining space combat game and really worth checking out if you're into naval games such as, you know, Battlefleet Gothic.
Barrel roll, barrel roll, barrel roll, barrel roll, barrel roll.